Hello and welcome. Today, we're diving into a pretty radical idea. What if everything we think we know about winning and losing in life is completely backward? We're going to explore a perspective that argues the real measure of success has nothing to do with what you get done here on Earth, but everything to do with what happens after. So let's just start with that huge question. What does it really mean to win at life? Is it about the money, the power, being famous? Well, the source material we're digging into today basically pushes all of that aside and gives a totally different answer. And this answer, it's built on a very clear, very uncompromising idea of what success is. To really hammer the point home, the text we're analyzing introduces these two figures who are complete and total opposites. Okay, so here's the core of it. On one side, you've got a trillionaire, someone with everything you could possibly want in this world, but they die a non-believer. And on the other side, someone who had basically nothing, lived in poverty, but died as a devout believer. From this viewpoint, there's really only one thing that matters at the end of the day: where the soul ends up. Incredibly blunt about this, it argues that no amount of worldly success, not even $1 trillion, can save what it calls the real you, your soul, from eternal hellfire if you die outside the faith. In this worldview, all those earthly achievements just become worthless if that's the final outcome. And here's the flip side. In this view, being poor doesn't stop you from being a winner. Nope. The only thing that defines an eternal winner is dying in a state of belief, worshiping only the Creator. It completely inverts how we usually think about a successful life. So you have to ask, what's the foundation for a claim like that? Right. So why does the source make such a bold claim? Well, the argument isn't just based on scripture alone. It actually points to the physical universe as evidence. It asks us to look at the very fabric of our own bodies for signs of a designer. Just try to wrap your head around this number for a second. 7 octillion. That's a 7 with 27 zeros after it. According to the source, that's not the number of stars in some distant galaxy. That's the estimated number of atoms inside a single human body. And this isn't presented as some cosmic accident, but as a deliberate act of creation. And it just keeps going. Think about it. Your body has around 34 trillion cells, and every single one is like a tiny complex factory, all working together perfectly. The text uses this as evidence, arguing that this level of mind-boggling complexity has to point to a single origin, a single creator. And this all leads to the foundational argument. The source says, look, since we couldn't have possibly created ourselves, that's absolutely impossible, then our very existence, from the tiniest atom to you, the whole person, is undeniable proof of a creator who designed it all as a gift. This whole idea is captured in this powerful, recurring question from the Quran. It's essentially asking, after seeing all this evidence, every atom in your body, the stars in the sky, which of these gifts, which of these favors could you possibly deny came from a creator? So, if creation is a gift, that brings up the next big question. What's it all for? To get to that, the source zooms in on a specific chapter of the Quran, Surah Al-Mulk, to make the case that life isn't just a gift, it's also a test. According to the analysis of this chapter, life and death aren't just random biological things that happen. Nope, they were created with a very specific divine purpose in mind, to be an examination. And the test, in principle, is pretty simple. It's not about who gets the most done or who collects the most stuff. The test is to see who is best in deeds, basically, who lives their life in the most righteous and conscious way possible. The chapter builds this case by painting this picture of a universe that's under total divine control. It's a flawless creation where we humans are ultimately accountable for what we do, and we're completely dependent on our Creator for literally everything, from our daily food to our very safety. Now, how you do on this test really comes down to one crucial idea: taqwa. It's described as this deep consciousness of God, a way of living with both awe and a constant awareness of your Lord. And that awareness is what guides everything you do. And this leads to two completely different fates. On one path are those who lived without paying attention, ignoring the signs, and they're warned they'll face some serious regret. But on the other path, those who lived with taqwa, that constant God consciousness, they're promised forgiveness and a great reward. So it creates this direct line between how you think and act in this life and what happens to you in the next one. So where does all this take us? Well, the source material wraps up with a call to action, and it's rooted in this entire way of seeing life, death, and the universe. It's a call for a final reckoning, not just something that happens in the afterlife, but something we need to have with ourselves, right here and now. The ultimate message here is really a direct challenge to our own arrogance. The text argues that when you really think about the perfection of creation and how we're totally dependent on its creator, the only logical response is humility, to just constantly recognize the signs that are all around us. And to really drive this point home, the source asks a pretty stark question. What if the creator just decided to hold back the things we completely take for granted, like water? It's a powerful reminder that from this perspective, our survival isn't up to us. It depends entirely on the mercy of our creator.
So in the end, it all boils down to one conclusion. If life really is a test and we're all inevitably returning to the creator, then preparing for that moment becomes the single most important thing we can do. Our entire lives are sort of reframed as one long preparation for that final judgment.
And this leaves us with a final thought to chew on. This perspective challenges us to see divine signs everywhere we look, from our own biology to the stars. So I'll leave you with this question. In our modern world, which is so defined by science and technology, what does it even mean to look for signs in the universe today?